Hi, everybody. Welcome to Faithbridge Family Gathering this evening. Really glad that you could join us. Hope that you were able to join us yesterday for our service online with Ben Stewart, our first youth pastor and current senior pastor, founding pastor of Passion City, DC Church. And he brought us a marvelous word, and you'll want to see that if you didn't get to already. You'll also see, if you didn't get to see it already yesterday, we made the exciting announcement that a family who no longer living in Houston still connects with Faithbridge, and in the most generous of fashions, put up a matching gift for $250,000 if we could match that in a week. That would total $500,000, not to go for funding things around Faithbridge, not for buildings, not for operation costs and staffing and so. No, this would be for people in the community who have fallen upon hard times in this COVID-19 era, who have maybe lost jobs and need money for their food and for other essential kind of things. And so I made that announcement yesterday, and our church came roaring out of the chute. I think of the word picture of the sledgehammer station at the amusement parks, where you bring the sledgehammer down, and there's the bell up there. You try to hit it hard enough to ring the bell. We didn't ring the bell quite, but I'll tell you, we got well beyond halfway yesterday, and so just came really out with a good strong first day start. Now I want to be able to tell this family we matched all of it, 100%, $250,000 here by the end of the week. And so I want to lean into that. If you haven't taken part of it, I want you to take part of it. And just realize any amount you give, whether it's $20 or $100 or $1,000, it's being doubled right now, instantaneously. And it's going to go into people's hands and hearts who need it with urgency right now, because they're in dire straits right now. So be part of that. If you want to be a part of that, text to the number 77977, the words "Bless Our City." 77977, Bless Our City. And you'll get the link through which then you can do your giving right now, even during family gathering. So this evening for family gathering, I'll give you a little story. Wayne Risher, who's on our lead team and has been on our staff for years and was even at Faithbridge years before with his wonderful family as just very active lay people in the church for years. Wayne's really one of our very best coaches on the whole team. I see him build solution-oriented plans for people young and old to help them assess the problem and to figure out how to approach it and how to prevail through it. And so several weeks ago, I said, hey, I want you to join me for my Zoom call that I have every Thursday with a bunch of church planters. And I want you just to bring a little content for them to get them thinking, and then we'll do some Q&A with them. His presentation was riveting and so relevant because in it he basically talked about old ways which are now gone, and new ways which are now coming. And in this post-COVID-19 era, how the new is going to be different than the old, and it's going to be relevant for the churches that young people are starting now, and churches like ours that are reinventing by the week. I told him afterwards, that was such a marvelous presentation, Wayne, and relevant for every industry, because everybody's having to reinvent themselves. Everybody's having to restart. I want you to do it for a family gathering. And he said, I will do it. And so it is. Wayne Risher, we will join now.
Thanks, Ken, and welcome to our home. If we don't know each other already, my name is Wayne Risher. I'm a pastor at Faithbridge on staff, in charge of the Connections Ministry and the Family Life Ministry with marriage and supporting all the great things happening here at Faithbridge. For our family gathering tonight, I want to go a little different direction than normal. I want to talk about some things that we're all experiencing right now in this season and how to process forward with a degree of clarity. But for me, if I can't see it, I can't own it. And so I want to share my screen tonight, much of the time, really in two parts. The first part, I want to talk about some things, just processing forward about some big ideas. And then I want to take you to a tool that I think you will find helpful in the end. I don't care whether you're a student watching tonight or if you're a parent, a homemaker, or a professional, just sit back and relax. I think there'll be something here for all of us. So I want to share my screen now, and we'll process forward. I want to share with you just some big ideas about people around the globe. If you're following us tonight from another city in the world or across the county, I don't care. It doesn't matter because we're all experiencing the same thing that's happening here in the greater Houston area. We're walking through times of disruption here in this season, but we're not strangers to disruption. Disruption happens all around us, but often so slow we don't even notice. So I want to give us a few practical examples of the kind of disruption that we're experiencing in our everyday lives just to get us thinking, okay? The first of all, I want you to think about how disruptive it's been when people start migrating from the office to working at home. That's been happening. People are working more and more remote now than they ever have before. And I'll give you another one. Phones, landlines. Used to be a house had a wired phone, and then it became cordless, like the one in the picture here. And then eventually everyone moved sort of towards cell service, and we have very few homes now having landlines. I'll tell you another disruption or a big change we've had is in the dating world. I'm marrying so many couples these days, and many of them are getting together. I'm finding the old fashioned way, the new old fashioned way, and that's through online dating. It's been interesting how that has changed. Our TV programming has changed too. Once upon a time in the old fashioned days, we would get a program or a guide that would tell us what would be on TV, but now everything is on demand. Streaming services like Netflix and many others are just taking over the way we watch TV, changing both what we watch and how we watch it. Here's another example. Retail shopping. Used to go to the store and buy from a catalog, but now retail shopping has been changing. And we're finding that so many people are no longer shopping and that stores are closing everywhere. They're buying online with retails such as Amazon and so. I'll give you another disruption that's happened in our lifetime. Disruption in the way music works. From records to 8-track tapes, we migrated to cassettes and then compact discs or CDs to MP3 files and all the music. Think about all the music people have purchased song by song for $1.99 or more. Now you can get unlimited streaming service for 10, 12, 15 bucks a month on services like Spotify and so many others. Well, here's a good one. A portrait studio. Who goes to the portrait studio anymore? We used to go to Sears or J.C. Penney and have our portraits made, crazy pictures, but now we don't do that. We bring the photographer to us wherever we are, and many of us are using the excellent cameras on our mobile phones, and we're becoming our own photographers, taking endless pictures. You know, we call selfies now. So if you're among the selfie generation, the portrait studio is long in your past. Here's another one. If you go to the store and try to replace your 60-watt light bulb, you needed a conversion table where there's been a complete disruption in the lighting market. And LED has replaced all those old incandescent lights. And finally, I'll give you one more that's not only caused disruption in our vocabulary and our dictionary, but here we have friend. It used to be a noun. I would have a friend, or I'd want to make a friend has become a verb. And we are friending people and unfriending people. So we've had a lot of disruption, but look at that list. All of those things have happened to us at a slow rate. We've seen the change over time, but yet it's not something that we've had to experience so rapidly. So, what's different now? That's the question I've been pondering. If we've been experiencing long seasons of change and disruption along the way, what's happening all of a sudden different? Well, I'll tell you what's happening that's different, I think, is the pace. The pace at which we are experiencing disruption and change is greater than we've ever experienced it before. Instead of being about a 30-year transition from records to CDs, I'm experiencing a change about what happens with me today and where I'm going tomorrow. It's a rapid pace. It's a change that's happening in unprecedented ways, and it's affecting me. I'll tell you several ways I think it's affecting us. We're really in a season now where we're experiencing some isolation, and that's affecting us right here at Faithbridge and around the world. Our church not able to meet in our facility anymore, at least temporarily, and so that's a factor in keeping us a little isolation there from other believers. Fortunately, we're moving towards Zoom to help us out and make sure that we're all staying connected that way and streaming online and so. But I'll tell you another way it's affecting us is our jobs. Many of us are under work at home orders, and all of a sudden now it's a situation where we're not able to go to work, and work from home is a new thing that is affecting us. Another isolation thing is not being able to hang out with our friends and our relatives, the people that we love to be with. We're living in a place of isolation, so it's kind of rough for us. And I'll tell you something else that's going on that I think is affecting us, and that is that our routines are being disrupted as well. Our routines. What kind of routines? Well, I'll give you several. If you're a student and you're joining us tonight, one of the routines that's affecting you for sure is you're not able to go to school right now. That's a challenge. With school being out and even delayed along the way. Something else. If you happen to be a senior who's watching, goodness, your graduation for class of 2020 has been changed. And so your cap and gown experience might look different than generations ahead. That's another place that we've been disrupted. Childcare has been disrupted for those who get to go to school programs. That's something that we're not able to do right now. Even I've been watching in social media the number of people who have been experiencing sort of a new kind of birthday they've never had before. They're having birthday parades and this sort of thing. But all these things, our isolation, our routines, and it's all happening because pace. We've never had this kind of change, this kind of disruption happen as quickly as it's happening right now. Goodness, I'm just so glad that we have electricity. If we didn't have electricity in this season, we had no power for air conditioning and internet, we would be most miserable people, I guarantee you. We don't bend as much as previous generations did. When it comes to bending, we bend in a way that is more challenging right now. Things get messed up faster when our pace is different, and they get messed up faster, and things seem to get us a little more fussy. So let's talk for a minute about buzzwords and even how our vocabulary has changed over time. As we talk about the different buzzwords that have come and gone around change, in years past, we talked about navigating change, how important it was for us in business and homes, relationships to navigate change. But nobody liked to navigate change. One of the things that we want more than anything is we love control in our generation. And so we decided that we want to manage change. We're going to get out in front, be in control of it. And then we decided we're going to lead it. We want to be the generation of people that doesn't have change happen to us. We're going to be the generation that causes change. In fact, there's a company, you may know of them, it's Toshiba, and their slogan for years was leading innovation. Before change got the best of them and they weren't able to adapt as quickly as they needed to. And Toshiba is now much smaller than they were before. And now we're in an era, though, of just flat disruption. Um, when we think about that, we really come to a place now where we're in a time when we're experiencing disruption fatigue. It's a real phenomenon. What's happening is we're feeling the fatigue of disruption in a way that we've never felt it before because its pace is so fast. But we're not the only time that this has ever happened in history. Is this something new? No. Solomon was telling us that there's nothing new under the sun. And Solomon reminds us to stay focused. It's important. And Solomon reminds us to love God and follow his commands. And we're not the only ones to experience any of these challenges to our finances, our health, our social structures, or our systems. The question really want to pose tonight as we start moving toward the tool I want to share with you is how do we move forward, taking the level of disruption and the pace at which all of this is coming to us? I guess we could respond in one of four ways. We see, first of all, that you could become a person that's fretful, or you could move to a place of fearfulness. And because you're fretful and fearful, that can actually move you to act in a way that's foolish. And that's not what we want. God calls us in times like this really to lean into faithfulness. I think that's what we want to do. And in order to move toward faithfulness, I think we would be right to take a good lesson from the life of Peter. When he saw the Lord and they were in their boat fishing, and when he saw the Lord and he looked over and saw Jesus was walking on water, kind of coming to him from a shadow, Peter just jumped out of the boat and he said, well, I'm going to trust you. If that's the Lord and you're walking on water, then I can do it too. And as Peter started moving forward toward that, he said, well, I'm going to focus on God. And as he did, things were fine. He was walking along. And then a moment or two later, he started focusing on the waves that were around him and the chaos that was happening here. But as soon as he took his eyes off the focus of God and started focusing on the chaos that was around him, he began to sink. He called out to the Lord, Lord, save me. And of course, the Lord did. But just a reminder that when we take our focus from God and we become very aware of what's happening around us, all of a sudden our situation changes. So I think the real call for us here is the difference between awareness and focus. We want to keep our eyes fixed on the prize, fixed on Christ, who is the saver of us, both now and eternally in these situations. So what do? I think Peter gives us a good lesson in his passage, 1 Peter 5, verses 6 through 9. He says, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be alert and sober of mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Resist him, standing firm in the faith, because you know that the family of believers throughout the world is undergoing the same kind of sufferings. And that was true then and is true now more than ever. The world is experiencing unprecedented times. And so, in these challenging times, I think we'll be wise to take a lesson from Ben Sherwood, former executive from the Disney Corporation. He gives us three good lessons. He was at the Miramar naval base, which if you know anything about the movie Top Gun, it's where that movie was filmed. And Ben Sherwood took a class on surviving in a helicopter crash in water. And one of the things that they do is they put you in a tank in a helicopter cockpit, and they flip it upside down, and they require you to exit the helicopter safely underwater before ever flying over water in a helicopter. He made a good observation and said one of the most important lessons that he learned in the aviation training for surviving a crash is to wait for the sudden and violent motion to stop. That's a great lesson for us in these times. There's so much sudden and violent motion happening in our financial markets, in our job markets, maybe even inside your home. Things are a little chaotic right now, and we're making rash decisions, saying things we shouldn't say, doing things we shouldn't do. And I'm just going to encourage us to take a lesson from Ben, who said, wait for the sudden and violent motion to stop. That's when the best decisions are made. That's when clarity comes. And that's when we want to call out to God and say, give us wisdom in this moment. The second lesson he gives us is a good lesson from underwater. And he said how important it is when you're upside down in the cockpit of a helicopter underwater is to maintain your point of reference. Feel your chair and know where the armrests are. Look for the bubbles because the bubbles are always rising to the top. And if you're upside down and you're in a place of disorientation, you want to maintain your point of reference. That's a good lesson that ties us right back to Peter when he got out of the boat. God told him and reminded him through his sinking in the water, maintain your point of reference. I am your point of reference. And so faith is an important element. One of the best survival tools we have is our faith, to be able to stand firm and resist the enemy and going forward, find faithfulness and trust and peace in our Lord. So as we move forward and talk about these things, the question is, how do we move forward? How can we do it right now? As we trust God and remain faithful to Him, giving Him our care and anxiety, as the scripture said, staying alert for our surroundings, focusing on God and not on the chaos, what can we practically do to identify where we are and how do we think big picture so that we're not sinking like Peter? I think that's the question. So I want to share my screen here to another screen, and I want to move to a diagram that I think will help us. As we move forward, this is sort of the path that we've been on. This is what we do. This is how we go and move about going forward in our everyday lives. This is what we're path. This is our trajectory. This is what we do for our job. This is how we live our life at home. And we have made these plans to go forward as though it's going to continue going in that direction. This is our present path, and this is what, in fact, we have planned to do, or this is what we hope to do in the future. Unfortunately, sometimes things come along, like a moment like the COVID virus or the price of oil, and it changes the trajectory that we're on. And when it does, we have to learn how to adjust to the gap between where we were headed and where we are now, because they're not necessarily going to be the same place. So as we do that, a tool that's been helpful to me in processing along the way, learning how to identify the gap and to understand where I'm at in the journey at any time, I think knowing and seeing where you are is the ability to help us move forward. So I want to just borrow from more than a decade-old tool from Willow Creek and add a few learnings of my own to it. When we're in a situation like we are in the present, times that are a little uncertain on where we're headed, I always find comfort in processing forward sort of like this. I want you to track along with me. This again is where we were headed. The ideas, the plans we had, where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do, and the idea that we're here right now. This is our current station. And then suddenly along the way, things get difficult because it's always easy up front when you have a new idea, and it's always easy at the end when you see the end coming. Well, what does this trajectory mean, or what is this plan? Well, this could be anything. This could be me going from junior high to high school, or from college to graduation, or from graduation to a new job. This may be moving to a new city. It could be going from a baby who crawls to a person who walks. This may be someone who's using training wheels to someone who's able to ride their bike without training wheels. But the challenge for us isn't always what's happening on the start of something or the end of something. The challenge is for us right here in the middle. This is where it's difficult. And during this time, it kind of reminds me of my bike. My son likes to ride mountain bikes. And as I think about him riding bikes, I remember one time we were riding in the sand, and he would tell me, "Dad, it's coming," and I could hear him downshifting. And as we would go along, I would hear him shifting down into the sand, and I didn't want to ride that because this is a place where it's hard to get traction. Kind of where we are right now with COVID-19, working from home, all the pace of change, it's tough to get traction. during this time, and something ultimately happens to us. I'll give you several things. First of all, the vision of getting where we were hoping to go ends up becoming a little fuzzy. And one of the things that we need to do is we need to remember that vision always leaks. It's important for us to continue to build a vision bucket. What vision am I talking about? Well, maybe this is a rough season for marriage along the way. Maybe you're home in proximity that you have never been in before, and that makes a challenge. Or as a student, a parent relationship is stressed because there's no escape from anybody. We're all in close proximity. Maybe this is a professional conversation. Or for us here at Faithbridge, this is a spiritual conversation because we're wanting to make more and stronger disciples of Jesus Christ. And how do we do that when times have suddenly changed on us? Does that mean that our vision has leaked? No, 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 no. That means we have to retool. We have to refill the vision bucket and remind ourselves why we were going this way in the beginning. Well, let me tell you the second thing that I think is important for us to think about today, and that is that every leader at home, in church, in your career and job, in your relationships and family, can experience this downward spiral. When you get into a little place, we'll just call it a funk, and sometimes that happens to us. We get into a funk, and then suddenly the three P's start to take over. Let me tell you what they are, and you may be in one of them right now. The first P is things get personal. You start to get a little frustrated. Maybe at work, you're wondering, well, this is not working out so well. Working from home, not so good. My paycheck got cut. Maybe I lost my job. I'm taking it personal. The second P that often happens is when somebody moves into a place where it becomes pervasive. Pervasive. And it starts to spread into other areas. Not only taking it personal, but now it's going into other areas. Relationships at home, kind of like a country western song. Something bad happens to you, and you just kick the can down the hill into a bad spot. All the areas become infected with the current challenge, the little funk that you're in. And then maybe the third one, we'll move into a place where we feel like this is permanent. I'm never getting out of here. It's always going to be like this. How long can this thing last? We're never getting out. We're never having a rescue. And it starts to become permanent. And that can lead us, friends, into some challenging places. And so, what do we do to get out of it? What do we do to get out of the place where we start to feel personally affected? It becomes pervasive in other areas and permanent, where we start to lose hope and move into a place of hopelessness. Well, let me give you the third thing, which I think helps me for sure, and I hope it will help you as well. Let me tell you a quick story that I think illustrates the point for us. There was a college experiment, a research institute that did an experiment with these monkeys. And they put these little monkeys in cages, and they would just expose them to all kinds of incredible stimuli. Flashing lights, loud music, and just the monkey would be in the cage and just freak out. And the lights were flashing and all the sounds were going, and they'd take the monkey out of the cage immediately, and they would check a level of chemical in the brain that would measure stress, the stress the body's been under. It's called cortisol. So they did that hundreds and hundreds of times with fresh monkeys and let them experience it and measure the chemical. And then they decided to put two monkeys in the cage and repeat the experiment again. When they put the second monkey in the cage, they did exactly the same thing, the same flashing lights, the same loud music. The monkeys were just in the cage and they were freaking out from all this stuff. And then they took the monkeys out of the cage, and again, they measured the level of cortisol that were going on to determine how much stress the monkey had been under. What's amazing to me is 50% reduction in the level of cortisol when there were two monkeys in the cage. Why is that important for you and I to know now? We're in stressful times, number one. One of the best things we have that the Lord has given us is community. So when it's rough and you're feeling like you're never getting out, it's personal and it's challenging, you know what you need to get? You need to get a monkey in the cage with you. What does that mean? A family member who can support you, a Zoom call, jump on church online, connect with us. It's important for us to be experiencing community because we're not designed to go alone. So, right now, if you're in the danger zone and you're experiencing the challenge that happens right here in the middle on our way through this to the other side, I'd encourage you to have somebody on your team, somebody in your corner, someone that you trust who can lift you up, pray for you, hold you accountable, and help you maintain that focus on where you're headed, the focus on Jesus Christ, the focus on your Savior. And let me give you the fourth thing I think is important to help us as we move forward. The fourth thing here that I think is important for us to see along the way is that you've got to have mile markers. Mile markers. What is important about mile markers? Well, let's go up here to our little chart for a minute. Let's say that a mile marker is why we have report cards every semester. It's why we have graduations. It's why we have anniversaries and birthdays. It's the things that have regularity that hold us accountable to short-term goals, just moving us forward just enough so we can get on down the road to the end that we really want to be in. And so we have to have mile markers along the way. My wife asked me recently a good question. We're sitting on the porch, a little bit in isolation, and she said, "What is the silver lining for us?" In this season. For us, it's different for everybody. What is the silver lining for you in this season? Maybe it's your family has been able to draw closer together. Maybe you've actually been able to have more productivity at work. Maybe you've gotten some things done at home. Maybe you've used this time for leaning in to a relationship with God, a devotional time that you've never done before. For us, what does it look like for each one of us? What's the silver lining in this time while we're isolated and away? So, putting those things together, just kind of considering those things, the trail from where we are to where we need to be is fraught with some trouble. Vision leaks, that's something. We have the 3 Ps that come into play. We need to call it what it is so we know where we are. And we feel that way, we need to get somebody in the cage with us because we know that we handle stress and challenges in life when we're in community. That's one of the things God calls us to do, is to be in community with Him, first of all, up and down, and then, as the cross would show, community with one another. It's important for us to be in community with fellow believers. And then lastly, the mile markers. What are your mile markers right now that are going on in your life? What things can you put out ahead to help us think forward? One of the things I would love to challenge us with is just to ask, what is our story going to be at the end? What's the story going to come out of this for us? If you're going to tell someone a narrative in a month or 2 months or 3 months about the oil prices dropping, about the economy being challenged, about graduation being suspended, about school being out, about any of these things, what is the narrative that you could tell? It's another way of asking the same question that my wife asked me, and that is, what is the silver lining for us in this? What is the story that God is revealing to me? Well, let me tell you, while this whole picture is easy, we're not just going forward in one place. We're going forward in a bunch of places all at the same time. I'm going to use this as ground zero. And I'm just going to show you an example of how we're living multiple dimensions at the same time. I found that we're kind of moving things not only forward there, but for me, I'll just give you an example from my life. I'm a parent. And I'm not just moving forward here, but also I have a little danger zone in the middle in my parenting journey. I also happen to be a son. I've got parents who live in a different state, and I've got to remember that they need to hear from me. They want to stay connected with me, and they are definitely monkeys in the cage for me. And so, what are the danger zone in the middle would keep me from being the son I needed to be? Some of us have finances, and this is a season that could put some challenging on our finances. We're moving toward a financial goal or an outcome. Maybe you're in a survival mode and you're right here in the danger zone in the middle, kind of like the bike. You feel like you have no traction. You're going through the sand. Um, some of us are really been able to just trim our expenses back. What's our goal there? One of the things I also happen to be a disciple of Christ. And as such, I have a relationship to maintain um, a connection with God. He's also in the cage with me, cheering for me, loving me, encouraging me, instructing me along this time. But sometimes I do feel like I'm in a funk. And sometimes if you get a little funky, there may be some challenges to moving your faith forward. Sometimes we may be having a professional role. And the challenge we have, or the place we have to kind of look forward to, is where are we heading in that regard? Um, I'm also a friend, so I've got to worry about my friends. Am I doing a good job keeping up with them? Am I being a good friend? What are the challenges that I've got there? There's a lot of different places. I'm a leader, as many of you are leaders, leader at home, leader at school, leader in your professional workplace. I also am a learner. And I want to be moving the ball forward constantly, learning something new. God, what can you be showing me in this season? Is there something that's from the secular world or the business world or the academic world or the spiritual world? What is it that I need to be learning in this season that would be healthy for me? And also along the way, there's any number of things. I'm also a spouse. I'm in a relationship. And so as a spouse, I want to keep the relationship going forward, even in times when we're isolated with each other. And so I think about these sort of places, these stations out here, and you maybe would want to put a number on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maybe we're killing it up here. We're doing awesome on our finances. Or maybe as a son right now, I'm a 3 and I'm not doing very well, and I got to do some work there. Maybe as a parent, I've been struggling with my focus there and serving my family well, and I've been fussy more than I've been fellowshipping. And maybe I'm a 5. And the Lord's convicting me, hey, I need to lean in a little bit to this season. Anyway, in each one of these places, I'm just going to challenge you to be thinking forward. As we kind of come through this, what is a mile marker for you? What are the things that God might be showing you to do? Because our trajectory gets off schedule pretty quick. And I want us to be able to bend. I know Pastor Dan taught me a valuable lesson several years ago, and he said that blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape. And I haven't forgotten that. And I'm praying over each one of you that you will be flexible in this season and that you'll maintain focus more than anything on your Lord and Savior. You'll maintain focus on Him going forward, and that you'll be focusing on Him in a place that you're able to replace fear with focus in such a way that when we're in times of plain disruption like we are now, I'm praying for each one of you that you'll have an opportunity to live and love and plan forward, not allowing the enemy to have a plan in disruption in your life, but yet using this time to focus on Him. And so now let me say a prayer for us, and I'll go back to my screen. Lord, thank you for the opportunity for us to connect here during this time. Lord, help us be in a place where we can gather and focus on you. Help us, Lord, have an opportunity to connect with others in the cage. Who is it, Lord, who might be with me? Is it a parent? Is it a friend, a sibling? Lord, help me understand who it is that would be cheering for me so that I don't go into the 3 P's, Lord. I want to get out of that and replace all of that, Lord, with my trust and faith in you. Lord, help deliver us from these times of challenge and disruption. We're going to trust in you. We love you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, thanks for joining us for our family gathering tonight. Ken, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Wayne. And thank you, everybody. I'm really glad that you could join us this evening. And let me just say one more time, if you haven't been a part of the matching gift, jump in now. Text the words "Bless Our City" to 77977. And please take part in that benevolence fund that we're creating right now. We will be grateful, but even more importantly, those who will be the recipients of those special offerings will be very grateful. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.